In today's video, I'm going to share with you an answer to a question that came up within my live group sleep coaching program called Sleep Skills for Life. So every single month we get together for live sleep coaching, and I answer people's questions and help them to actually work through that practical plan to overcome their insomnia and sleep problems that have been around for a longer period of time. And when it comes to this particular topic, this topic of dreams, this is actually not uncommon that it comes up in my practice. Often, when you might actually be woken up by dreams, it becomes something that's quite disturbing. But obviously, in this particular video, I'm going to share with you part of that conversation that I had with the client, which focuses on how can you even interpret whether or not the dream itself is relevant to the sleep problem that you're experiencing and whether or not you even need to deal with it. Now, as you might have seen from different things you might have seen from me, I look at personality traits quite a bit. So often dreams are, whilst they are a creation of our mind, and sometimes they're relevant, sometimes they're not, they represent a lot of different personality traits that we have naturally, as this is who we are as a human being. So when it comes to dreams and our interpretation of dreams and our experience within dreams, or when we remember them, is going to be quite personal to you. So this particular answer is just one of those scenarios, but I'm sure it's going to help you to start understanding whether or not they are relevant in terms of your sleep problem or insomnia, and whether or not you need to even deal with it. And if you do need to deal with it, how can you make these connections, just like I did as I explained through my answer, to see what you want to do around that problem or around that issue with sleep and dreams. Now, before we go into the content of the video, as always, I wanted to welcome you back if you are part of my community already. If you are part of my YouTube community, that's great. If you're part of my email community, that's great too. I always welcome you into my community so I can share with you all these different things that I teach people who want to work with me. Obviously, these videos are more general, so it's important that you take these into account as well. You need to look at how they are relating to your situation. And that's one of the most important things I always say. Please don't self-diagnose in any way. Either look at working with a practitioner or really look at it in a practical way so that you can see whether or not something you put in place had created a result. If you are new and you have not seen any of my videos before, then welcome. Hit that subscribe button below, hit that little bell so I can let you know when I post new videos. And if you like the content of the video, obviously hit that like button below as well. And let me just quickly introduce myself so you can understand where am I coming from and why am I sharing these things with you. So my name is Beatrix Schmidt. I'm a sleep coach, a professional speaker, and the creator of the Sleep Skills for Life program, which is very much based on the tools and the techniques and the practicalities I share with my clients, coming from my experience of struggling with insomnia and then learning a lot about it over the last over 10 years. So I've been working with clients for 10 years now, and I've really had a lot of different experiences with different combination problems, different complex sleep problems as well. So when it comes to overcoming sleep problems and insomnia that's been around for longer periods of time, it's really important to look at practicalities rather than just the theory behind it. And that's very much what I teach my clients. I teach my clients what it takes in a practical way to create great quality sleep for many years to come. Now that we covered that, let me share with you my answer to this question, which was around whether or not dreams are actually relevant to the sleep problems you're experiencing. And if you are waking up with disturbances because of dreams, then I also talk about why they might actually come up and why they might actually be something that you experience at some parts of your sleep progress or more consistently. The question is around whether or not we need to record if dreams are part of our sleep dynamic, positive or negative sleep dynamic. So the interesting thing about dreams in relation to insomnia or sleep problems that's been around for a longer period of time is that often it depends on the person and it depends on the type of the dream. So one person who struggles with sleep problems but has had dreams when they slept well will generally have a positive relationship with their dreams because they experienced them when they slept well. So when they start sleeping not so well and the dreams go, they often have an emotional negative response. They miss them. So that's one part. Now, if you struggle with sleep and you miss your dreams, that will add to the pressure of, here we go again, I didn't sleep so well last night. I didn't have a good dream, or I had a bad dream, quote unquote, or I had a dream when I was under stress or pressure. And look, because my sleep isn't so great, I'm now having more negative dreams. So that's one version. The reason I don't encourage too much of the capturing of that on the sleep diary is because it's layered on a few other things. Now, if you wake up to a dream because you remember, let's say, being kicked, fallen, crushed, crash, anything like that, the bit of the memory you remember that feels disturbing is this event, is this hyper event, either kicking, falling, being hit, things like that. So that you can record, because the little piece that was the most disturbing about is that little event you will most likely remember. So when you're saying what prevented you from, let's say, sleeping last night, you can say dream and you can add being chased or exam or a bit of a context. So if you put dreams, I would ask you to put context, because the context is often what gives us clues of why it may or may not matter. So if, let's say, you have a dream which you feel is disturbing about passing an exam, and you don't need exams anymore in your life realistically, but it's a memory of the old circumstance, how that relates to sleep problems and improving sleep is that often I don't overanalyze sleep, but often it will have the tendency of either performance pressure somewhere in the picture or worrying about an outcome of an event. So exams, in the past you would worry about an exam because it would have a relation to a future of something, grades, getting into somewhere, getting a pay rise, something like that. So what sometimes the context of that little event that is disturbing in relation to sleep is that when you, let's say, struggle, you're more likely to trigger into some of those traits, so performance pressure traits or worrying about outcome traits. Those are all going to be linked to certain personality traits. And what we see sometimes is they will relate to something that happened during that period of time of your change, so sleep progress, or the frustration that change isn't there. Now, I don't analyze the theme of the dream, but what we can extract from it is what is it about and how can that relate to the experience. Now, the only way we're going to know how it relates to the experience is what happened 2-3 days before that night and what happens 2-3 days after that night. So, for example, if you have put in place a new tool or techniques 3 days before, I'll just give you this example, and the dream shows up only, let's say, 3 days after, that shows probably, and again, it's just a guessing game right now, but it's most likely going to show us that you put a new tool and technique in place and you wanted to do well with it in order to get an outcome, but maybe didn't quite show up the way you thought Therefore, the dream has formed around that experience. But obviously, it's no longer about 20 years ago you had an exam. It's about the bottom line of what that actually means, which means, have I gotten that tool to work? Sometimes it works that way, but sometimes dreams are just incredibly random. But I always look at it in relation to events that might have been linked. And that way, we can see whether or not it makes a difference. And for example, in this situation, if somebody has a peak performer trait or the exam pressure type trait, and every time you put a tool or technique in place that's based on the same principle, generally speaking, what happens is that the dreams tend to repeat around the same time frame because it is the behavioral pattern. It's simply a sequence of events. It's not a bad one. It just shows what we've actually tapped into or what we are addressing. So that is sometimes how I relate to dreams. Sometimes they have a meaning, sometimes they don't. And sometimes the only meaning is that it taps into a sequence of events which then relates to a personality trait. So now that we've covered what I talk to my client about, what I want you to think about, obviously, is what is your experience with dreams? This was just one example, as I mentioned earlier in this video. Every one of you will have a different experience. I have a different relationship with my dreams, as you might have a different relationship with yours. So what's important is really just to understand how they relate to you and what your experience is. And what you're going to find is certain personality traits, just like I mentioned in my answer to a client, will start to show up. What we have in terms of personality traits are often a big part of our dreams as well. If we're more of a worry type person, then we're more likely to have dreams that are more about worrying about something or perhaps negative experiences. If we are more a slightly more positive person or maybe a very active person, then our dreams will be more likely to be around those things that we experience on a daily basis. Remember, dreams do come from our experiences, but sometimes they sort of mushed up together in sort of weird ways as well. So this is why I mentioned earlier in the video that sometimes dreams, they have relevance and sometimes they don't. So that's important to take into account as well. But if you've got any questions about dreams or anything like that, you can either reach out to me in the comments and ask your question or tell me what you might have learned in this video, or reach out to me separately via my website as well. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I look forward to continuing to share with you some of these things that I talk to my clients about and how they can help you to continue making progress in overcoming your sleep problems and insomnia as well.